Hello, good evening, welcome. It's Wednesday night, it's 9 o'clock, and we have a visitor from across the seas that's going to be joining us for this evening's episode of VTTalk. Here are the titles. Yes, indeed, it's VT Talk on a Wednesday night, as ever is. I am Dave Dawn, that is. I nearly forgot my own name there, for goodness sake. I don't know, it's the Diet Coke that does it. And tonight, as per usual, we have Kat in the chat room taking all of your questions and delivering them unto me, the one and only, gloriously delicious Sav. However, we have other guests as well. The guest, in fact, and if we go to this shot, you can see there is Brandon Ward from Evolv, the people behind the Darwin and the upcoming Kick. And he's here to talk to us tonight about all kinds of things. But first off, welcome to you, Brandon. How are you doing, young sir?
Very well. Thanks, Dave.
Lovely. What time is it where you are?
It is 4:02.
2 minutes past 4 in the afternoon. And the weather?
That's right. Yeah, I came home a little early from work for this, so it made me happy.
Well, that's good. It's nice to know that you can get a good flyer and come across and see us, and we do appreciate you doing that. First questions first, really. Vaping. How did you get into it? Where did you start? Daft question? What was your first e-cig?
My first e-cig was an Enjoy N Pro. I think that's what it was. I picked it up at a just a local convenience store here, locally. I had tried a number of different ways to quit smoking. I'd been smoking for 20 years, about 2 packs a day, and had tried multiple. I had tried the patches. I had tried Chantix, different ways of quitting, and I just happened to be surfing along one day, and I had read an article on e-cigarettes, and I thought, maybe this will work, and picked one up and immediately got interested and tried it, and I just threw away the cigarettes. I haven't had one since, not even a puff. So.
Uh-huh. Okay, can you remember what your first mod was? Have we? What's the sound problem? Gone altogether? Alright, my apologies, let me just check that. On all shots. How weird is that? Yeah. Nothing there. It's okay now, is it? Still can't hear Brandon. Brandon, could you speak again, please? Still can't hear you, Brandon. Yeah, I can hear you perfectly. What I don't understand is why nobody else can. Let me just check this out. Editing shots as we go. From the medium shot. Okay.
I think so.
Right, try that one, Brandon.
Are you still there, Dave?
Yes, I'm still
here.
here.
Okay.
I can hear you fine. Can everybody hear Brandon?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, we'll stick to that shot. we shall stick to that shot. I do apologise. I don't quite know what's happened there because it should have gotten through, but apparently it didn't. Software is wonderful stuff. So we were talking about your first mod.
My first mod, as I recall, was I'm trying to remember who made it. It was a VP1. I'm trying to remember who made it, and I followed it up soon after with Silver Bullet. Silver Bullet was my second. But then it just became, then you start looking at things and saying, well, I could do this, I could do that. I jumped into the modders forum, on a lot of the different forums and started to look at what people were doing, and it just went from there.
Okay, and so what prompted you then to go into power regulation and the Darwin?
It seemed like a better way to do it. To me, and to who's my partner now in Evolv, which is a gentleman named John. We talked about it, and it seemed like the better way to do an e-cigarette would be to, in an essence, power regulation is controlling the heat. When you have changing resistance, voltage regulation is not, really heat control. Now, if you had a static resistance, it would be. But, as anyone who's has been into e-cigarettes for a while and has measured the resistance of their atomizers or cartomizers, they do change over time. And we felt it was a better way of doing it, to control the heat. And that's how that's sort of how the Darwin was born. The first one was huge. Actually, I wish I had brought it up from downstairs. I could have shown it to you. It was a brick. I mean, it was horrifically large and cumbersome, but it worked well. And John, which is one of the members in Evolv, and I worked on making it very small, making it very usable. There were a few things that we wanted in a mod, or at least I wanted. He doesn't, one of the things I absolutely had to have was something that was pocketable, because in the little experience I had with mods at that time, I couldn't shove them in my pocket. I wanted something that I could carry around, like my cell phone, or any of the other small devices that I had. So the folding arm was a must for me. So we threw a lot into the Darwin. We could have done it a lot easier if we had just left, an atomizer connection on the top. But we had this sort of wish list, and we met most of the things on that wish list with the Darwin. But there was a lot. Nobody had ever done a power regulated e-cigarette to that point. And our design, we tried several different designs to get there, and we found the one that we came up with, that we currently use in the Darwin and now use in the Kick, worked best for from a vapor, at least from this vapor standpoint, it worked better than any of the other ways that we had come up with. So it's sort of a unique design. Not sort of, it is a unique design.
Yeah.
There aren't too many things that use power regulation in the world, so it's a lot of voltage regulated things, but not a lot of power regulated things.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get confused about exactly how power regulation works and why it's very different from a variable voltage or a voltage regulated device. Certainly a lot of people I've spoken to, they've asked the question, well, will that give me a 6-volt experience? And you kind of, it takes me aback a little bit, because you kind of think, well, I don't know what atomizer you've been using to get your 6-volt experience. So, do you think there's an easy way to explain how a Darwin works to people that don't know? And obviously the same will apply to the Kick.
The easiest way to explain it is, it's simply heat control, and no matter what's happening in the atomizer or the cartomizer, no matter what resistance you stick on there, it's going to give you the same amount of energy transfer at the coil, or heat, and that's pretty much what the Darwin does, and it holds that heat consistent. What it's doing, it's a closed feedback system, so it's continuously looking looking at the amount of wattage to throw out and keeping that heat consistent, so it goes up and down, up and down, up and down, or down in some cases, or it just sits tight if the resistance doesn't change. And it does that thousands of times per second. Obviously you can't feel that, but the end result is a very consistent hit. As throughout the hit, you get the same, the same feel, and that's the main difference. I mean, just as you said, I mean, with voltage regulation, depending on what type of atomizer you put on, depending on, as that atomizer wears, it's going to drop. Typically, not always, but it's going to drop resistance, and your heat level will rise if you leave it set to let's say 6 volts, for instance, when that drops, when that resistance of that 3 ohm atomizer drops to 2.8, it changes your wattage. With this, as that resistance changes, with the Darwin and the kick, it brings that heat down with it. So you're not getting that, that burnt sensation or that's sort of that inconsistency.
So
it's really that simple. I mean, it's just that simple.
It's a bit like a cruise control on an automatic gearbox.
Exactly. Yeah. As you approach a hill, it increases the, it pushes the pedal for you. Exactly. I mean, it
increases the revs and drops a couple of cogs and takes you up the hill at the same speed. So
you got
the Darwin and the kick are cruise control for your e-cig.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it.
I'm going to be absolutely honest with everybody. I pinched that off Brandon from a private conversation we had a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I was going to say something about that, but
no. I don't believe in taking credit for something I didn't invent. I really don't.
That's all right. Somebody else gave it to me, so we passed it around.
Well, that's fair enough, I suppose. That's fair enough. Yeah, I mean, certainly from the point of view of the use I've had out of the Darwins before the kicks came through, it does give a very, very consistent experience. And there's been a number of versions of Darwins as well, haven't there? I mean, there's been iterations of new bits and bobs coming up all the time.
Yeah. I would love to say it was perfect when we brought it out, but it was far from that. We released on revision 5, and there's been 11 revisions since. The elbow has gone through multiple iterations. It's completely different than what it was. Really, the only thing that hasn't changed in the Darwin is the power delivery and some of the aesthetics. But the rest of it has changed. But the way it delivers power is exactly the same. If you pick up a revision 5 Darwin or even a revision 2 Darwin, which would be a prototype Darwin, it still delivers power exactly the same as the revision 15. The revision 14, the revision 13, they all deliver power exactly the same way. It's just, a lot of the issues we've had and a lot of the things, we sort of took the concept that this will, we're going to continue to change the Darwin over time. I mean, some of the things that we've changed have not been significant, and we haven't jumped a revision level because of them. We added extra detents to the elbow just because, we know there's a lot of tank users out there that want their Darwin to stay upright, in this position. And so we added a detent at 90 degrees. We added a detent at 125. That wouldn't, that's not a revision. But when we changed the elbow, like I said, we made, there were a lot of things that we hit ourselves in the head when we first brought out the mod, and we said, how did we not see this? One of the big surprises was the different ways in which people use e-cigarettes. I think we completely underestimated the amount of time that people spend with their e-cigarette and the amount of use and the amount of rugged use that the e-cigarette gets.
But do you mean there are people that actually put them down?
Yeah, yeah. You know what? And I don't. It seems obvious. Now that. Things like juice ingress. The original Darwin, the very first Darwin, wasn't conformal coated. I mean, that's just the dumbest thing in the world for an electronics manufacturer not to conformal coat an electronic product, but it's something we did. And we went, oh God, what were we thinking? These people are dripping juice directly into this thing. And the juice ingress is going to be a problem. So, that was, it was one of those things you look at and you just go, God, I wish we had it to do over. We would have done that, but we didn't. But each successive revision, at least in my mind, has made the Darwin in some way more usable or, helped in the longevity of the device. We stand behind our warranty. We knew, when we initially brought this out, because we really, there was no, we didn't have any sort of model. We changed the form factor of a typical e-cigarette, and partially this is a functional, this has to do with function over form. I mean, we fit a lot of it had to do with the screen size and the battery size. 2/3 of the Darwin is battery, 1/3 of it is screen. And that's, a lot of the things that we did in the beginning, we've sort of taken and twisted a little bit and made a little bit better. But we knew, having invented something that had never existed before, that there were going to be issues. We budgeted for those issues. We figured we would have, returns, and we already had a policy set up. One of the things that I had noticed in this industry was that we weren't getting, like when I would buy a mod, if I had an issue with it or something like that, or needed to contact the people that sold it to me, I wasn't getting a lot of response, and that was frustrating. I mean, it was extremely frustrating. So we sort of said, okay, we're gonna do something different here. We're gonna initially we did a lot of advanced replacements with the Darwin. If yours broke down, we already had another one in the mail to you before you sent yours back. Now that kind of bit us a little bit, because we, there were, there's still 40 some units out there, and about 17 of them I've seen sold on the classified. So, that sort of bit us. I think we sort of said, well, these are, but for the most part, the people that got them did return them. And I'm not saying that everybody that didn't return one, had some Machiavellian reason for keeping it, but it was, well, I got my new one, I'm just going to stick this one off. And, there's been a few times where, I've contacted those people and they're like, oh God, I totally forgot it's in a drawer over here, and they send it back. But we wanted to kind of raise that customer service level, to something that we didn't feel like, people had seen in this industry. I think we've done that pretty successfully.
That's just raised a question in my mind, and I've got no idea whether it's been raised in chat yet or not. But if somebody's got a revision 5 or revision 6 Darwin and they want to get it up to, what is it, revision 14 now?
15 actually. We're just rounding the corner on 15.
Okay,
so the distributors don't have those yet, but yeah.
Can people opt to send their Darwins in and have it taken up to revision 15? And if so, what are the charges likely to be?
That's something we've talked about, but we haven't made a decision on. Right now with the kick, we're too busy to do it. I can tell you that. But in the future, that may be something that we look at. But they're not. The revisions aren't significant enough, and a lot of them are very unnoticeable to the user. So if they're not having a problem with it, they really wouldn't see much of a difference. Okay. A lot of it's internal things. A lot of it had to do with the elbow. The elbow gave us a ton of trouble from a mechanical, standpoint. It was a nightmare. I mean, a lot of the different things we had to change the entire switching system. The early Darwins used a spring push pin that would they had a flat on the elbow. Looks exactly the same on the inside as it does on the out, and it used a push pin to push a micro switch on the board. But what we found was that with juice ingress, that top micro switch was getting filled with juice and would stop conducting. So you would put down the arm on your Darwin, and it would fail to turn off. So we went to what's called a Hall effect sensor. So we started embedding a magnet at a specific angle in the elbow, and what happens is that it's a solid state chip that goes on the board. And now, when you swing the arm down, that magnetic field passes over that Hall effect sensor and turns the unit off. And it actually has worked great. The only problem with it is sometimes you have to close the arm a little bit slower to get it to, because it doesn't recognize immediately that you've swung the arm down. But other than that, just little things like that, things that you probably wouldn't notice if you didn't know they were there. But it certainly helped in trying to build the longevity into the device.
Yes. Now I know there's a lot of interest in the kick, and that's where I want to go very shortly. And I'm going to be a little bit cheeky. You did show a couple of Darwins to Sav and myself earlier on that were not your usual Darwin, shall we say? And I just wondered whether you'd be prepared to put those on camera.
Yeah. We've been playing around with a couple different things. Let me see. I've got a whole slew of Darwins here. This is one, and I just all I did was take an older case, which is one of the signature cases. We put an extended elbow on it just to see how it would work. And this is an Ego T tank, and I put a blue screen on this one. This is that's got an actual blue screen. It's a still white backlight, but the background is blue and the writing is white. I don't know if you can see that, but
yes.
But with this, it gives you a little bit extra clearance, about 3 millimeters of extra clearance on the side, so you can fold a tank into it. Not a huge tank, you're still not going to get some of those monster tanks to fold down, but it's something we looked at, as a possible future. This is just sort of something I wanted to try out and see how it worked, and it seems to work pretty well. Our fear is that when you shove it in your pocket, with an atomizer on it, the gap between the body and here is going to cause you to snap this down. So, there's still, there's some things we want to look at with it, but that is one of them. Yeah. And then anytime I have the cases anodized, I usually have one or two made up in different colors because my anodizer is great, and he likes to try new stuff. He made a pink hard coat, which is really cool, but it actually it didn't really come out pink. It sort of came out of like a burnt orange. And I had but he's always running out different things. He tried an army green one, which is this one here. So
I just noticed Sav over my shoulder salivating at the pink one.
Yeah.
Yes, and I must read you a comment that Kat has just posted in our private chat. She says, "Very handsome. The Darwin, I mean."
I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying a word, but Sav, both you and I know exactly what's going through your mum's head.
Yes, I do.
Yes. And I just heard a little voice there through my headphones, and I'm not going to say what she said. Because that shouldn't have gone out, I hope. Okay, well, we're going to take a short break for some little adverts about shows that are coming up. And when we come back after these little adverts, we're going to be talking about the kick. So you know that P you were talking about, Brandon? Now's the time. You've got about a minute and a half.
Thank you.
We'll be back after these. Coming up tomorrow night, the Haze Hour with new titles. there you go. That's what's coming up tomorrow and Sunday. We'll tell you about Monday and Tuesday a little bit later on. But now, the kick. Now, as a lot of the viewers will have seen, I've had this GGTS in my hand nearly all night, and inside it is one of the first beta test kicks. And I have to tell you, I can't put it down. And
that's what we'd like to hear.
Well, it's doing the job really nicely. Raw Veg, Tim, whose show it was last night, also has one, and he seems to be quite happy with his. And I noticed on Monday night's show, Andy Roadhog was given his hot licks as well. So the kick, where did you get the idea for the kick? What was the kind of the ethos behind coming up with something that could just slot into an 18650 bearing mod and Darwinise it, if you like?
Yeah, well, that's exactly what we took a look around. You know, I had a lot of 18650 mods, and you know, they had sort of been retired, and John and I were talking about it, and you know, I can't take credit for the idea. It was actually his, and he, you know, we went to work on it back in autumn of last year. So this was, you know, not terribly long after the Darwin was released. We started work on the kick, and you know, that one really, you know, we sort of took our gloves off and rolled up our sleeves to get it as small as it is. You know, I mean, it's you know, the process technology we use to do the kick is a much smaller process technology than what's used on the Darwin. And there's not a lot of real estate there, so you know, there were heat issues, there was real estate issues, there were component issues, you know, and we wanted something that was, you know, one of the big complaints about the Darwin is the cost, and we wanted something that, you know, we could produce cheaply enough that we could put out at a price point that everybody could afford, because I've heard it again and again, you know, I'd love a Darwin, but I can't afford one, and so we wanted to give, you know, we wanted to bring power regulation to the market at a, you know, at a reasonable price point, and we were able to do this, and you know, we choose to deal through. You'll notice we don't deal directly. We deal through distributors, and you know, so you have to leave something in it for your distributors, and you know, to get the price down, it took us a while, and to make it work right. You know, one of the problems with bringing out a device that's universal like that is, you know, you have to make it work in most devices. And the other thing is you don't really have any control. Like in the Darwin, I have control. You know, we have control over the battery. Yeah, so you have to. But with this, they can, you know, pretty much throw any IMR battery in there. So you have to make something that's universal enough that and can handle different situations well enough that it survives. And you know, and it doesn't sound like a lot, but there was a lot of work that went into the kick, and it took a very long time to get it to where it is, you know, now in beta. You know, there's any product, you know, when you go from design or from concept to design, you know, to prototype to beta, you know, it's a long process, and it takes time, and there's a lot of, you know, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But what we ended up with was a, you know, it's more or less, it uses exactly the same power delivery as the Darwin. There's absolutely zero component commonality between the two. So there's not, the Darwin and the kick share no components, but they deliver power in exactly the same way. Even the processor is different. You know, we went from an Atmel processor in here, you know, to a 90 MIPS ARM processor, which is a, you know, kind of a, you know, very powerful processor. But, you know, like I said, with this product, you know, one of the things that we really wanted to do was, you know, put it out there in a large way in beta, make sure that, you know, it was going to function the way it was supposed to, first and foremost, and listen to what the beta testers were telling us, you know, as far as feedback. I mean, the most important thing to us right now is, you know, getting that feedback and listening to it and changing the device to fit the user. You know, that for us is the single most important thing.
Well, I know we've got a list of questions a mile long there, Sav, a lot of which will be to do with the kick. So yeah, let's hit the first of those and fire them at Brandon.
Right, the first question came in from Put, and he wants to know, does the kick have to be in a tube mod, or will it work in a mod like the Rio Grande?
It will work in a mod like the Rio Grande. Robert, who makes the Rio, he actually has a kick. I sent him a kick. We sent him to most of the mod makers. There's still a few on the list I haven't sent him out to yet. I know he made it work in his. I don't know where he's at with that, but as long as it's grounded, no problem. I mean, the problem with going outside of a tube mod is that you have a ground spring on the side of the kick, and I actually have an old beta here, or an old prototype. I don't even have my own beta because we sent them all out, but the ground spring on the side, I don't know if you can see that, but on this one it's just a spring-loaded ground spring. But as long as that's making connection, and grounding to either the bottom of the battery or the case, if it's using case for ground, the kick will work. Yeah, so it doesn't have to be a tube mod. It may take some modification to make it work. Running a wire from the ground spring down to the bottom of the battery, or to the spring in the bottom of the mod, that holds the battery. But no, it'll certainly work in just about anything. And we're also going to be selling this, which is the this is the actual modder's board with through-hole solders here. You can see the processor there, and it's it's very thin. But if you're a modder and you want to build a power-regulated box mod per se, it has it's got connections for a potentiometer, connections for a button, and connections for the battery. It's simple solder, and you can pretty much remote this anywhere you want in your mod. So those are some of the things we're looking at. But no, it does not have to be. To answer your question, it doesn't have to be a tube mod.
Okay, that's good. Doesn't have to be a tube mod. And the next one, Sav, because they're going to come thick and fast now, I think.
Okay. Yeah, the next question. Is there some kind of protection or warning system about the battery state in the kick? Because the person doesn't want to overdrain an IMR in case it will die.
Okay. Yeah, we did. We sort of had a choice here to go with. There's two cores that we looked at going with. One is a 2.7 volt core, which is too low for the IMRs, meaning that at 2.7 volts loaded, it would cut off. We chose to go with the 3.2 volt because by doing that, you're losing about 10% of the actual usage time, but you're gaining about 40% of battery life. So in other words, your battery's going to last 40 charges. If a battery only gets 100 charges, you're going to get 40 more charges out of it by not draining it below. And what will happen is with the kick right now as it stands, and like I said, we're in beta, so this all could change. But right now as it stands, once your battery hits 3.2 volts loaded, it'll start to stutter. You'll start to get an even well, I'm sure Dave can tell you.
I can attest to that. You get to the point, certainly with the GG, where you're fiddling and finagling with the button to try and get it to make contact until you can get out of the little boy's room and downstairs to put a new battery in.
Right. Right.
And yes, I've taken the opportunity to measure the battery when I've taken it out, and it's bang on at 3.4, which is where I would expect it to be, and 3.2 under load. So that's it's working really well.
Well, that's good.
And I have to say, prior to that happening, I had actually killed one IMR by draining it completely down to the absolute bottom on what I didn't realise was a 1.1 ohm atomizer. And it just totally flattened the battery, killed it altogether.
Yeah.
And it's the only one I've ever killed. But I can't see it happening with this because it's very, very obvious when the battery wants to be charged. And yes, it's doing the job very nicely. So that works.
Yeah.
That works.
Yeah, and it does work well with where the Darwin struggles sometimes with the lower resistance stuff at lower wattage settings. The kick is a little lossier, so it can get down to a lower battery voltage. So you can get down to the 1 ohm level with it and still still regulate very well at even low wattage settings. So
yes.
But much over about 3.5 and you're going to start hitting the limits of the kick as far as ohms go. So a good range would be like 1 to 3.5. I think would be, if you're going to be buying, things specifically for the kick. I think 1 to 3.5 ohm would be depending on where you use it.
I'm very, very happy with a 2.6 ohm dual coil.
That's perfect. Yeah,
it's gorgeous.
Right in the middle.
Right in the middle. Right in the sweet spot. This gives me everything, nearly everything I want. But I'm sure there'll be questions that cover that little bit of ground as we go on. So that was a seamless segue to the next question, I think, Sav.
Right, the next question, both Delboy and Steffi are asking, please, Brandon, tell us the kick won't be limited to 10 watts, and if it is, will the Modders kit be unlimited?
That's a good question. One of the things that we want to stress is that we're playing within limits. We don't want to push the limits of the device. We don't want to push the limits of the battery. Pulling 4 amps out of an IMR battery, safe. You go much beyond that. If we dropped it up to the 13 watt level, we'd be pulling 6 amps out of the battery. That's, we're getting into a more dangerous level. Or, I guess we're kind of riding the limits of the C ratings on these batteries. And, I think you're always safe, especially with prismatic batteries to kind of take your C rating and have it. Just ask the guys that have been using these in the RC world for a long time. No, I mean, there's a different chemistry. We control, again, like I said, we control the battery that's in the Darwin. But for us, it's partially safety, it's partially battery related, it's partially heat related because of the when you have something as small, it's only 18 millimeter diameter. It's hard to dissipate heat quickly, and taking it up above that 10 watt or 10.5 watts. And like I said, it's in beta right now, so we're not we haven't slammed down. Okay, it's only going to 10. The betas go to 10. But I think a lot of people out there would don't go ever beyond 9.5, 9 on their Darwin. I typically vape 9 to 11, so I'm with you. I understand that you want it to go above 10, but it's not something that we're not intentionally, I guess, hindering it. What we're doing is trying to stay within limits. You don't want a kick that overheats and burns up, and you certainly don't want a battery that is overtaxed and doesn't last or swells up and bursts your mod. So these are all things that we're looking at. We have played with the higher ones. Now, as far as a Modders board goes, not unreasonable to say we could go higher with a Modders board because if they're going to satellite it off in a place, if they're going to heat sink it somehow, not unreasonable to say we could go higher with that. It's just right now like I said, we're in beta, so nothing's been really slammed down. Oh, this is exactly what we're going to do, and that's why we leave it open because really we're looking at the feedback and saying, okay, what do people want? It's less about what we want and more about what they want. So.
Is there any possibility then of producing 1 or 2 12 or 13 watt capable kicks and putting those out in the beta?
Yes. We could do that, but again, with the components that we used here, that would be riding the limits of those components, and I don't know how comfortable. I mean, if we're talking about moving up, it's only slightly. It'll never get to 12. I can tell you that.
Okay.
There's just not enough. There's too much. There would be too much heat, and and there's also a battery issue. So.
Okay. So the constructor's kit can more or less go the same as the Darwin, but the kick has a limit to it that it can't go beyond.
Right.
That seems right. That's fair. That's fine. We know that, and that's better. Take the next question then.
Yeah, the next question came from Clyde Anderson, and he says, "Have you found that some mods work with the kick better than others?"
The hope is that by the time we release that won't be the case. But yes, we have found that. We have found that some do a little bit better. We're trying to correct those issues. I'm not going to say which ones do better. One of the things that we changed on this second wave of the kick, there were a couple things that we changed with this second wave of beta. Okay, we did our first wave of beta. We came back with a lot of feedback. One of the things we know needs changed is the ground spring. So the ground spring is going to be changed to one that is adjustable, It's going to be more of a compression style spring that's going to come out and touch the side wall of the device. One of the other things that we noticed was, when we started to scope some of these mods just with a battery in them, is that, the ones, especially the ones with a lot of mechanical connections, some of these mods have, 10, 11 mechanical connections, before you hit the atomizer, is we were getting a lot of fluctuations, in the voltage and the kick. What we're trying to do is we're widening that, the kick being a precision piece of, electronics, doesn't like that up and down, but we can widen the area at which it, we had some people that would, fire the button on some of the mechanical mods, and they were failing to get, it wouldn't start, until it saw that settle down a little bit. And a lot of it just has to do with maintaining, your mechanical mod properly too. But we want to make that sort of as broad as we can, so we're widening that variance that it'll allow, in the voltages, so that it fires better. But that's just one of the things that we're looking at for Wave 2. But our overall goal is to put this thing out and have tried it, and have our beta testers try it in as many devices as they possibly can, so that it works in just about everything. That's our want. Will we reach that? I don't know. But I can tell you this, that in most of the popular mods right now, it works fine. I think David's got a nice cross-section of mods there, and I think he's tried it in most of them, and I haven't heard too many complaints. So.
Well, I can tell you what it works in of mine as we speak. I've had it in a cube, no problem. Mm-hmm. Double-barrel silver bullet in both double and single configuration, no problem. Did have to slightly tweak the ground connection out a bit, because the silver bullet is a wider bore than either a GG or a cube. I've had it in an indulgence. I've had it in the GG stainless steel and the aluminium, in stealth mode with the UFS and without. What else have I had it in? Basically all of the tube mods I've got that don't have any electronics in them.
Right.
The kick has been in, and thus far it hasn't let me down, and it's worked. And I've moved the same cartomizer and same atomizer between them, and it's working exactly the same on all of them. So from that point of view, I've got no challenge at all. And I'm also here to tell you that it's made the IATI eminently usable.
Not good.
You just don't have to worry about how many winds you put on the coil anymore. You just make sure it fits. That's great. Yeah. It's made a Bullier 2 usable for the first time ever. I hadn't been able to get away with that at all, because I just couldn't wind coils for it particularly well. And again, I was one wind, it would be 5 ohms, the next it would be 0.5 ohms. Now it doesn't matter, it's working, and that's fine too. And it's driving dual coils, whether they're Atties or Cartos, pretty much where I want them on, but on full tilt. I will say that another half watt would be nice. But yeah, I mean, mod-wise,
noted. I think you and I have had this discussion. I mean, I know everybody wants to push it a little further, but
it's just call me Tim Taylor.
Yeah.
What we want is more power.
Right.
Basically. No, but yeah, I've not had a problem on any of the mods I've tried it on. It's worked quite nicely, and I don't have any 18650 box mods to play with. I should also say I've had all of those devices, all of the ones that would take an 18650. I've used an 18650 and an 18490, and the ones that wouldn't work with the 18650, I've had the 18490 in, and they've been fine, absolutely fine. Does that mean I don't have to email my results back now?
Yeah, no, we'd still like to see them.
Okay, I'll do that. And what we'll do is we'll take another short break, just again to trail what's coming up on Monday and Tuesday of next week, starting with the Twins of Evil, the VAPOURMISTS. Yes, that's next Tuesday night. Tim Rovage, the man that can coil a coil better than a coil's ever been coiled before and repair things that you just didn't know how to repair. Brilliant, that man. Should have been a midwife or a brain surgeon or a midwife that does brain surgery. Right now, while we were playing those trailers in for shows that are coming up, we just had a quick look at the list of questions that we've got, and it is a mile long. And I see that we've only got about 14 minutes, if that, left. So I've just had a quick word with Brandon. And Brandon, you're okay with coming back next week for a second instalment so that we can get to all the questions that are here?
I can do that, yeah.
So there you go.
No problem at all, Dave. I don't mind at all. So
super cool. There you go. So if we don't get your questions tonight, we'll pick them up next week. We'll do a double header on this one. And to be honest, I think it's worth doing because there's a lot about both the Darwin and the kick that a lot of people don't understand and they want their questions answered. So let's get to the next one straight away, Sav.
Right, the next question came in from Cliffy, and he wants to know, do you have to use IMR batteries with the kick?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. The current draw of the battery is anywhere between 2.2 amps to about 4, maybe just slightly over 4. So the IMR is the must-have. So yeah,
okay.
That's it was designed for use with the IMR batteries.
All right, that's good. Next one, we're going to try and belt through these.
Yeah, Roveg says, are there plans for a version of the kick in different form factors?
There is one. As I said before, one of the things we're looking at is working with mod makers. When we came up with the design for power regulation, one of the things that we wanted to do was bring it to the market. We weren't going to lock it up in a tower and say, no one else can have this. It's ours. We made a decision, and this was soon after the release of the Darwin to, really the Darwin was sort of to put it out there and prove that it worked. Everything else from then has been, figuring out how do we get this to the market so that other people can use it. And if there is an interest, in other people to use it, I don't want to be so forward as to believe that everybody wants power regulation, but, those that do, those mod makers that do, we've set up, as a matter of fact, we've already started experimenting with different tops and different ways you could put this into a tube mod as a permanent fixture as part of the mod. We think it's a good enough technology that we wanted to share it with everybody. It's not something we wanted to say, we're the only place you can get it is from us, and so we're trying to make it cheaply enough for the mod makers so that they can do that, and with some minimum order quantities we can pretty much do anything with that. The modder's board is just the bottom board from the kick. I mean, it's more or less so that you have the dime sized bottom platter that's that's really the brains of the thing, and anything you add on top is things like potentiometer configurations, button configurations, screens, things of that nature. And there's a whole slew of good ideas that we have, and we have talked to a few of the mod makers, and it started to kind of get an idea of what they'd like to see, especially the modders, the guys that do the one-offs. These guys, I think people underestimate how powerful the guys in the modders forums on these different forums. They push the technology. I mean, these are the guys that are out there innovating. They're doing one-offs in their garage, and they're doing amazing things in their spare time. And we wanted to bring a board to them with lots of different options. Sort of, I've said it before. It's sort of an erector set for guys that want to put this into their mod. I mean, if you look at some of the coolest things that are coming out, for atomizers and things like that, they're all coming out of those forums. Those guys are absolutely dedicated. They're hobbyists. These are the guys that work tirelessly to come up with new things. And some of the stuff that I've seen there has just been phenomenal. And so we sort of want to give them the ability to do this without having without having to buy a big Arduino board and try and fit it into a small mod. We want to make this as small as possible. Say, here you go, do what you will with it, and tell us what you want us to do with it. Tell us what you tell us what you want to do with it, and we'll make it we'll make it fit what you want. So
cool. So there could be a power regulated pipe on its way. Oh, get in.
Oh, yeah.
And then well, let's move it on. Sav, next one.
Next question came from Felix Hoffman, and he says, does the kick make a protected battery out of an unprotected one?
I'm sorry. One more time.
Does the kick make a protected battery out of an unprotected battery?
Absolutely. 100%. Yes, there is battery protection in the kick that will make it, yes, it protects the battery. Overvolt, undervolt. Yes.
So it's got
your battery's not going to go thermal on you. So,
yeah.
Unless we do something terribly wrong.
got everything you need to make sure that you don't blow yourself up.
Exactly.
Always a good idea.
So that's it. That was important to us. Like I said, in playing within limits is important. Every component, was chosen and brought within a limit. Just like the Darwin. I mean, the Darwin's original design was meant to go to 20 watts. I mean, this unit can easily go to 20 watts. We don't, because that's, that would be pushing the limits of what we have in here. We could take it up to 15, 16 without a problem, but, 18 even. But 20 was the original design, and what we found with 20 was that was ridiculous. I mean, you would put a Cardo on here and, a 510 Cardo hit the button and it would just, blow vapor out. It was just way too hot, and, but there may even be some video out there, the original harmonica looking one, the really awful looking one that said Evolv across it. There were several of those out, and, they did some pretty cool things, but they didn't make great e-cigarettes. They were just way overpowered.
Yeah, I must admit the first of the beta versions of the Darwin that I saw reminded me a lot of my first ever Motorola brick phone. Huge.
Exactly. I saw a lot of different postings and got a kick out of a lot of them. I mean, somebody said it looked like a remote had married a tire gauge, and actually, I think they said that about the current one, but
yes,
it does look like that, but in a good way.
It's a Marmite.
But the original looked like a very large harmonica. I think
it's a Marmite thing. I think the looks of it, you either like it or you don't, care.
Yeah, exactly.
And in my case, I don't care. It does what it's meant to do, and that's fine. I'm ugly enough to use something that everybody else thinks is ugly, so that's fine.
Yeah. I think it's lovely.
Yes, especially in pink.
Well, I mean, maybe. Glitter.
I have a feeling I'm being conned out of my pink one. So,
oh, it's definitely a girly pink, that, Brandon. You've got to admit that.
I know.
Let's move on to the next question then.
Right, the next question is from DJ, and it says, regarding the kick, what makes the Darwin different that it can go higher? Is it because it has two batteries?
One is the lithium polymer battery. It's a much higher C-rated battery. One of the other things is if you look at the case, and if I don't have one to pull apart. Well, actually, I do have one apart here without a screen on it, but it uses the case as a heat sink. So we dissipate heat very well in the Darwin using the metal, of the case. It uses the entire case as a heat sink.
Yes.
So it dissipates heat a lot better. The components are larger. They're meant to be, run, like I said. I mean, the initial design was the 20 watts. So, these are the ones in the Darwin are working well within their limits. As a matter of fact, I actually have a Darwin that'll jump to 16. So, and I just use that to just press, to push different, when the dual coils came out, I wanted to try some things with those. So, and so forth.
Yes,
but
I can think of a queue of people on ECF that would be straight after you for a 16-watt Darwin.
Yeah, I know. I've heard it. And the other thing you have to keep in mind is, that if you look at the Darwin board, which this is the kick board. It's a quarter of the real estate, so we had to, I think getting it to 10 watts was, we were like, ooh, got it to 10 watts. Now everybody wants 11. It's just, you're working in such limited space, that it's difficult. I mean, to make it fit and to make it fit well into all these mods. we had to go extremely small. Like I said, the process technology is, 5 steps above what we used for the Darwin, or 5 steps below, I guess you'd say. So, it's a much smaller, much smaller components, much less area to dissipate heat.
Indeed, yes. Let's see if we can blast on. We've got roughly 4 minutes left, if that.
Right, got a question from Fright88 who says, can you give us an estimated time when the kick will be released, or an estimated time when you will release the feedback?
We would like to release the... wait, what was the second one? The feedback.
Yeah.
We would like to release the kick prior to the new year. I'd love to have it out before Christmas. Will we do that? I don't know. It really depends on how the beta goes. If they come back with a lot of different issues and a lot of different failures and different things, then probably not. But it's really dependent upon where we, can we make the changes? Can we make them quickly enough to put out a product we're comfortable with? We aren't going to rush it. We aren't going to push it, just to try and get something out before the new year. But right now, I can tell you that it looks like with the second wave going out here shortly, it looks like we may be able to hit that, that date before Christmas. But I can't guarantee it. I just, it's one of those things. It's manufacturing, and it's awfully hard to give an actual date, especially when you're in beta, because things can change rapidly.
Yes, indeed. And just looking at the time, I think what I'm going to do is wrap it up at that point, and say if
I've got one more question I must ask.
Go on,
I'm
then.
being hounded. And it's from our resident hat wearer, Delboy, who wants to know, Brandon, where did you get your hat from?
Yeah, that's a local tailor, actually. He had them on sale there. It's nice, isn't it? I like I'm kind of a hat junkie. So, I saw this and I thought, oh yeah, I gotta have that. My wife hates this hat. She absolutely hates it. That's why I wear it so much.
All right. No brownie points for you tonight then.
No, none at all.
Well, for the time being, Brandon, I'm going to say thank you very much for coming to join us
Very welcome.
tonight. And I'm looking forward to you coming back next week, because I think we've probably got about 30 questions in line for you, haven't we, Sav?
Yes, we've got a load.
And people in the chat are very, very happy to, I think, to come back and hear their questions asked next week. I'm sorry that we couldn't have gone on for a great deal longer, but we have to do what we have to do. So next week, same time, same place, same channel. That'll be great. Okay. So thanks very much for coming in, Brandon.
You're welcome.
And I've got to do this right now and remember how to do it right. And I've got to click that, and then I can say thank you also to Sav for doing the questions in live. Thank you to Kat for being in chat and bringing the questions into Sav to bring up to us. And thank you all very much for tuning in. We'll see you next week.